Welcome to Season 2, Episode 5. Welcome. So coming up in this week's episode, we meet Mark Gardner, the new Director of CST, and we also meet our own local security team behind the scenes and, of course, on the front gate. The outgoing and the incoming, a lot goes on behind the scenes with the training, etc. And, of course, we see them on the front line as well. A lot goes into it, and we really want to share our appreciation to them. So we're going to meet the team. But yes, welcome to this week's episode. Chagim are over, so many things we kept saying, after the Chagim, well, they're over now, so right. I think I need to get on with things.
And I think it's very apropos that we're honoring the security this weekend, post Chagim, because they were unbelievable. I mean, we're there davening, we're able to be inside, and they're protecting us.
And we couldn't do it without them on the gate. We couldn't do anything in shul, and especially with, with the new situation that we're in now, staggered timings, extra services, the security have just been there the whole time. They've never said no. In fact, I mentioned that to Danny himself, as you'll see later in the interview. They never said you can't do that because we can't get security. They said you do what you need to do, and we'll work around you, which was amazing.
Right. And the different services that we had. I mean, there was so much to take into account. But we did have a nice last days of Yontiv.
It was nice.
It was very different. You had the Chas and Bereshis,
and the Kala Torah.
We were completed and started all in one, and start over again. Had a good restart.
I enjoyed that.
So we look forward to a great year ahead. Even
that's the thing. We start again. You finish, then you start again. Bereshis, we're Bereshis now. This parasha doesn't need an introduction. It is the introduction.
That's right. We
start again, and hopefully a new beginning, a better beginning. We'll see what happens because COVID ain't gone away yet.
No.
But hopefully a fresh start to the new year.
We'll make it exciting. It's going to be, we have to, it'll be different on virtual a lot, possibly.
Well, we'll be doing blended events. So some in person, some online, some more, some less. It's difficult, but, we're here for you. Always open to ideas within reason. So do get in touch. And
so let's go over to the CST. The Rabbi Freeman actually went into the offices behind the scenes in one of the on-site interviews. Let's see what Mark has to say.
Okay, Mark Gardner, welcome to NLTV. It's such an honor to have you with us.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
And to do it here live on location. I think this is one of our first live on location interviews that we're doing, and thank you for welcoming me into your CST offices here.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm sorry we had to walk about with the face masks on. I think for the good of the viewer, it's nice that we've taken them off.
Yeah, well, they keep us safe, but you guys have been keeping us safe for years and decades, and so thank you. So, for our viewers who don't know, Mark has been with CST for many years, but now he has recently become officially CEO, is the title?
Correct, Chief Exec.
Okay, and so tell us a little about how you became involved with CST generally, and what you've been doing over the years, and your journey to this point.
I don't know how long people have got, but I'll try and be brief. I joined CST before it was CST. We were the Community Security Organisation. We were also commonly referred to as the Defence Department Board of Deputies, even though it didn't actually have anything to do with the board, really.
Which year are we talking?
1989. Rosh Hashanah 1989.
Oh, wow.
Was when I started full time, and I've been here ever since. I started out as a researcher. I was then head of research, and CST gradually opened up a bit.
So researcher, so that implies some sort of academic background. Where were you coming from?
Oh, coming from Glasgow.
Research, what kind of research?
Sure. I did politics at university and Japanese. The Japanese didn't go so well. But politics has remained, so that's fine. I was the political officer for Scottish HGSS. Back in the day, things were a little bit tough. We were coming off the back of...
Just so our viewers realize how important Mark's work is, since he did Japanese, they have not attacked us once.
The Fugu plan is still operational. You should do a whole thing on the Fugu plan. That's a classic that we don't have time for now. So, you know, when people say that the students have never had it so bad, it's so dangerous on university, I just don't get it, because when I was at uni in the mid-80s, we were called Nazis, we were called racists, there were fist fights. Jewish student societies had just undergone a spate of attempted bannings in the late 70s and early 80s.
Wow.
And it was really, really serious.
So just in this country? Or
in this country.
Okay.
That was my experience and my contemporaries. And I know that sometimes it's rough for students. One of the things with anti-Semitism, we always seem to be catastrophizing in the sense of, it's never been so bad. Well, I'm afraid it has been bad, it continues to be bad, but do you know what? This is the way I see it. We live in a place and a time when you can be as Jewish as you want to be, or as Jewish as you don't want to be, which is also important for some people. And coming from Glasgow, living in North London, I just look around at the opportunities for living a Jewish life, whether it's culturally or even commercially, and how open people are about being Jewish. It's unbelievable. So, all right, there are problems, but do you know what? The glass is also really pretty full in really positive ways. And it may be weird for someone from CST of all places to say that, but I think it's really important to get a sense of perspective on things.
All right, so it's interesting. So coming back to your journey into this, I mean, it's wonderful to know that you feel the glass is half full, but obviously you've dedicated your life to keeping it half full. Take us back to 1989.
Sure. So the fellow who was then running research for our predecessor organization said, look, I'm not allowed to leave until I find my successor. How do you feel about it? And he explained it to me, and it just grabbed me immediately. In those days, we worked out of the 6th floor of Woburn House, which is where the board of deputies were, the chief rabbi's office, births, deaths, marriages also was there, communal building near Euston Station. And the 6th floor didn't have a number, didn't have a nameplate or anything. You just went up there and there was a big heavy door and a security thing to speak into, and then you got let in. And there were about a dozen people who worked full-time on security, running all the volunteer stuff that still goes on today. So the people who do, you thanked me for keeping the community safe. It's not me who's stood outside in all weathers keeping your community or other communities safe. That's the work of the community. That's the community and the security and the trust that you put in them. That's the volunteers. That's the people who do it at your show. Some of them are members of CSC, others are not, but they still do the work. I think that Hampstead Garden Suburb, you've got about 50 people who help out the whole time, and then another 20 or so who give of their assistance. And that's the way it works. And it's not about CSD giving it to the community. It's just about us helping to facilitate it.
Well, thank you, though, you're absolutely right. I mean, our volunteers are incredible. But thank you for providing the support and guidance and training for them. So you came in as a researcher. What then happened? What was your next move through the ranks?
So when I came in as a researcher, the Berlin Wall was coming down. There was a resurgence of Nazism all over the place. There was a lot of Holocaust denial. And this was what was going on in the 90s. And then in 1994, there were the 2 car bombs here in London, one at the Israeli embassy, the other one at Balfour House in Finchley. But really, there was the dreadful Hezbollah truck bombing of the Jewish community centre in Buenos Aires that murdered 84 people. If something like that happens, the impact on the long-term future of the Jewish community, it's appalling. Would you send your kids to a Jewish school? Would you let your husband or wife work in a Jewish organization physically? Do your neighbors want you next to them? And it ends up essentially kind of being the end of communal life as we knew it. So the lessons around what a terrorist attack can look like and the impact that it has on the future viability of the community as a whole And that was when CSD moved up another gear in what we were doing. That summer, we became a registered charity with the support of the then Metropolitan Police Commissioner and the Home Secretary. By now, I was head of research. And then in the late 90s, we became a more open organisation, and I became Director of Communications and the main spokesperson for the organisation. I've been Deputy Chief Executive to the last two Chief Execs. I've now got the time and the head to dedicate to being Chief Exec. It's a really good time for me personally to take over. And I'm really up for it.
Wow. So tell me, I mean, you speak about these threats and attacks really back in the 90s. How have things been since? Where are we up to?
Yeah.
Where you've been here for a while, you can see trends. Are we, that glass that's half full, where is it really?
Okay, so the reason I mentioned it was because I hope that you pick up on it, because where we were in the 90s, basically with Nazis and the Holocaust and all. Then, suddenly in 94, very sharp focus on Hezbollah and also Palestinian groups that were rejecting at that time the peace accords that were being developed. Fast forward to the year 2000, we have the second Intifada period in Israel. And you have suddenly what people called the new anti-Semitism. And intellectually, you can unpick the new anti-Semitism and you can say, well, we know it's anti-Semitism because it looks the same as the old anti-Semitism. And it might have the word Zionist instead of the word Jew, or the word pro-Israeli instead of the word Jewish. We know this, we can smell this, we know what it is. But the new anti-Semitism is still a useful way of phrasing it.
Funny when they talk about new anti-Semitism, I think, isn't that the name of a Forster and Epstein book from 1974? Is that called the?
Yes! Yes! That's brilliant. There's always a new, whatever age you live in, it's new, isn't it? Exactly. So, left-wing, anti-Zionist, pro-Palestinian, and a lot of it from Muslim communities, local Muslim communities. And we could try and be politically correct here and call them jihadis or Islamists. The truth is, though, it's not about religion, politics. There's a lot of anti-Semitism within Muslim communities.
Let me give you a story, and I'm sure for the one story that I have, I'm sure you've got loads of stories like this. So previously, before we moved to London, we lived in Edmonton, Canada.
Right.
And this actually didn't happen during our time. It happened a few months before we arrived. So it would have been around 2001, I think. The shul, my formal shul, was firebomb, had a Molotov cocktail thrown through, broke a window, went in. They eventually caught the young man who did it, young Muslim fellow. How'd they catch him? His father turned him in.
Right.
His father said to him, "We're Canadian, we don't do that, son." And, I think about it in the context of the way, Muslim father, he says, this is just not, obviously attach himself to the wrong people.
That's the complexity of it. Yeah. So throughout that time in Israel was at conflict with Palestinian neighbours and with some of its own citizens, terrorist attacks, everything around that very difficult situation, punctuated by wars as well against Hezbollah and against Hamas. Each time, the number of anti-Semitic incidents, the intensity, right up. And the number of Muslim perpetrators also going over 50%. And all of a sudden, you've got a different dynamic. This isn't about Nazis anymore. Suddenly, this is about what is going on with our fellow Muslim, like British citizens. And the moment you internalize it, you make it about fellow British citizens, it becomes more serious. This isn't an external thing. It's coming in. This is part and parcel of our society. Then time moves on, and we get more obsessed with the whole Labour Party thing and Jeremy Corbyn, and there will be different opinions within each family as to how serious a threat Corbyn was and what that would have looked like. But in terms of facilitating anti-Semitic ways of thinking and of acting hugely, hugely serious. But as we talk about the carbon stuff, we also have to bear in mind the spate of ISIS terrorist attacks that were occurring against Jewish communities in Western Europe, which followed on from the Al-Qaeda ones in the 2000s. And when you look at what happened to the Jewish community in France, the Jewish community in Belgium, the emigration rates, the number of Jews that you hear speaking French in London because they've moved, the number of Jews, when you go to Israel now, you hear French the whole time. This is what happens. This is what happens when there is terrible anti-Semitic terrorism, plus an apparent inability or unwillingness on the part of the authorities to properly understand what's going on and to properly address it. And by the way, lots of your fellow citizens seem to hate you. And this is where you end up. And actually, CST's mission now, one of the ways that I define it, is look at what's happened to some Jewish communities in Western Europe. That is our learning point. That is where we must not end up. And look at everything that we've got and let's not lose it.
So when you're talking about those communities, are you talking now about far right, far left, or Muslim?
All of it.
All of it.
All of it. The politics is all a mess. And at any one stage, you can say that bit of the politics is especially messy. But we know as Jews that anti-Semitism talks about the condition of society as a whole.
So are we in a relatively poor place?
I think we've gone through the stuff with the Labour Party and with Jeremy Corbyn. It was a very, very close shave. These people haven't gone away. They're back in trade unions and other places, and they're reorganising, and they're hoping that if the opportunity should present itself, then they will come back in and try again inside the Labour Party, but it's different.
So let's talk about that. So, I mean, obviously we recognize CST as volunteers and professionals standing outside our buildings. Now, Labour, or far left Labour supporters are not coming with machetes outside out. So what role is CST playing in that domain?
This is the side of CST that doesn't really get seen very much. CST has to, as well as being the communal expert on how to do fiscal security, we also need to be the communal expert on understanding what the threat is. And the threat is physical, but it's also political. And essentially, the more that you're able to get away with the political rhetoric, the more physical anti-Semitism there will also be, because it's like any form of political violence. Terrorism is political violence. So is racism. And the more that the perpetrator feels that they can get away with it, or actually that they're encouraged from the mood music that they feel, the more there's going to be. That was the primary danger with the Labour Party in terms of physicality. But then there's also the emotional well-being of the community. And the emotional well-being of the community, knowing that you have a leader of the Labour Party who nearly became the Prime Minister, who has exceedingly hostile attitudes to Israel, to Zionism, and actually to the organised makeup of the mainstream Jewish community, is really, really serious. And then the next time Israel's at war, what do you think will happen in terms of boycott policies, which will begin with anything that comes from territories, even in a time of peace, is not allowed into the country. And then in a time of war, it will be a boycott of the entire country. Your kid served in the IDF. Okay, your kid morally and legally is on a par with someone who goes to fight for ISIS. Right. You went on holiday to Israel, then morally, ethically, you're on a par with somebody who would have gone on holiday to apartheid South Africa. And all of that green lights anti-Semitism, even if it's not meant to be anti-Semitic. Now, I was in the communal leaders meeting with Jeremy Corbyn. I was the designated expert in the room. That's the role that CST plays. Okay? So I go in with the board of deputies and with the Jewish Leadership Council. And we went into that meeting not thinking that Corbyn himself was anti-Semitic. And by the time we left the room, about 2.5 hours later, our opinion had changed.
Really? Wow.
Because when you sit with someone and you hear in their voice where their passion lies or where their apathy lies, you understand that person. And when he said anti-Semitism and other forms of racism, it was clear that he cared about the other forms of racism and couldn't care less about the anti-Semitism. And it's in those repeat behaviors. I'm presuming that you're anti-racist. If I came to you and said, Rabbi Friedman, what you've done has really offended me, it's really upset me, it's really scared me, you would want to understand, you would want to make amends, and I would feel that and I would see that in your body language and in the way that you speak to me. That wasn't the meeting that we had with Jeremy.
Wow.
And our attitude really hardened after that.
And at that point, that was already in the midst of the protest.
Yeah, the protest had occurred about 3 weeks previously.
Right. But it's probably at that point that even the officer of the chief rabbi was informed of where things were at and how things need to be stepped up a level. So, thank you for saving us from really real concerns. Let's move to practical day-to-day. I've had the privilege of tour around your facility here, and you've mentioned a number of people that are trained here on site, and then there are others who are trained locally. Tell us a little bit about the relationships between the CST office and local security, how that works, how people get involved. If you're looking for people to get involved, what's the process?
We're always looking for people to get involved, first of all. We can only be as strong as the community allows us to be, because we're part of the community, we're not separate to it. So this is a totally symbiotic thing between us and local communities, and we need everyone to get involved. And the thing I love about Hampstead Garden Suburb Shul is that I know that it has proper security, and I know people who help out on security, and I know from my team here which shuls are cooperative and which ones aren't. I know which ones where the security personnel feel supported and which ones don't. And basically, when they heard that you were coming in, all I got was positivity.
Wow.
About how strong the team is, about how much support they receive from the hierarchy of the shul, as it were, the infrastructure of the shul. And they're just really a model, basically, of how we would like to see things work.
That's excellent.
Which is great. So we've got full-time staff here who train our card-carrying volunteer members of CST. We put in a grading system a couple of years ago so that our volunteers had different levels of attainment that they could achieve based upon their physical abilities, their theoretical abilities, the number of security operations that they undertake every month, every year. Proper grading system to allow people to advance through. And it's been really, really successful. That is exactly the kind of thing that people who undertake security duties at the shul would come here for training. And because we can't do the training at the moment physically, we've developed online, and it's been very successful. We did over 30 online briefings in advance of the Chagim. We had 750 something volunteers on these sessions. We had over 150 police on a couple of sessions before the thinking. It's been terrific. We've actually
I think that your cooperation,
new way of working.
Well, your cooperation and integration with the police is it's a model that communities around the world have adopted from your CST here. So well done.
Well, the police opened the door for us to do it. The police here have a mindset. They're a police service, not a police force. And they work with communities to make that happen. So we're very fortunate to have the police service that we've got here in the UK. Also, I was the Jewish community's representative on the Ferguson inquiry stuff at Scotland Yard, which I don't know, forgive me, I don't know how much you know about this, because it's very formative if you are British in the late 90s to do with race relations and how the police operate. A lot of very important lessons and changes to ways of working based upon institutional racism that was found in their inadequate and in some cases downright offensive responses to the murder of a black teenager called Stephen Morris. And I was a Jewish community representative at Scotland Yard on all the citizen advisory groups that came together there, and change was needed, and change was overseen by some remarkable senior police officers. And maybe things have slipped a little bit in terms of the independent advisory processes that feed into Scotland Yard and the rest of the police service, but proper deep change was needed, and it was made. And the willingness of the police to speak with us, to learn from us. We have a couple of times a year in normal circumstances, we have like 100 police officers come to the Jewish Museum in Camden and have a rabbi explain about Jewish life and practice, explain about Jewish history, CST explains about anti-Semitism and why we do the operations that we do. It's terrific, and it is a partnership, and CST facilitates.
I mean, you think about that glass half full. I mean, when in history have we had that kind of cooperation and integration?
Correct.
It's really special. So, I guess my last question to you, Mark, is here we are, we've alluded to a number of times throughout the conversation, we find ourselves in the midst of a pandemic. What impact has that had on CST, on schools, on communities, and what's the long-term outlook from CST's perspective?
Okay, so don't really know where to begin with this one. We can do the politics or we can do the practice of what CST does, right? The politics are not good, because I think what politics does, it brings in more about conspiracy theory. It brings in more about politicians don't have the answers. Politicians aren't telling us the truth. We know as Jews what happens when the economy is in trouble. And I think at the moment people don't realise the trouble the economy is in. There's a lot of pain to come because of everything that's happened so far.
So there's modelling happening.
People will move to the extremes. People have already moved to the extremes. You could say that Corbyn was already an illustration of that. You could say that Brexit was already an illustration of that. That Trump is part of a global zeitgeist of people moving into the extremes. And when moderate, liberal, fact-based politics erodes, I think anti-Semitism is a space in which to grow. So big picture, I don't like.
Right.
In terms of CST's daily practice, some things have gone really well. And as an organization that plans for the worst, you're never quite sure if your plans will work. Well, suddenly we were all working from home. And actually, it worked. And it's still working. We're not all working from home. We have a 24-hour security control center with CCTV and radio feeds from across the UK. That never shut down. Staff continue to work. The researchers who monitor horrendous stuff on a daily basis online didn't stop working, because you can do it from home or you can do it in the office. The only thing is, can you do it safely? Okay? Without compromising your electronic security, as it were. And we managed to get around that, and that continues. There's been no let-up. If anything, we do more of it because staff do a longer working day because they don't need to schlep into the office. Right. And our work, when it comes to monitoring anti-Semitism, that is not a 9-to-5 job. That's always a 24-hour job. So there's a huge amount of that going on.
We had some of that new stuff, the Zoom bombing.
Yeah. Then there's the new challenges around how do you give security advice for the ways that services might be disrupted. There are far less communal events, fundraisers, cultural events. And these form, I mean, as a rabbi, you've got your diary of these things happen every year, okay? We've got it as well. Whether it's Limud, or Jewish Book Week, or Film Week, or the NLTV, or whatever, we've got that. So at the moment, it's only the shul services aspect and the school that's continuing. So the event security diminishes, usually, but the location security benefits because we've got, as it were, spare personnel able to now do more security surveys, give more security advice, more liaison with the local shul security teams. So there have been advantages. The training, unfortunately, no longer can occur face to face, but we're doing it online. And actually, the numbers of people participating has been brilliant. And we've developed a whole new skill set. And there will be no going back. So now we'll have online and physical.
Right.
When everything gets back to some kind of normality. That's it. We're doing our best.
Well, you are doing your best is really amazing. We feel safe and secure. Our people coming to shul each week know that we are in such wonderful hands. Thank you, Mark, for everything you've done for Anglo Jewry over the years. And as I mentioned earlier, I know that CSC is a model for Jewish communities around the world. So thank you for keeping 21st century Jewry safe. Thank you, Mark.
Rabbi Friedman, thank you. And if I might say, very multi-talented rabbi you've got there at your shul. One take all the way through. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. It was interesting to know that our shul is very unique and has our own little thing going on.
It's not just insecurity. Really.
That is true. For better or for worse, but it's
for better.
It's good stuff. And we have, like you said, our outgoing and incoming team of security.
A wonderful team. You'll see just by watching this what delightful people they are, and how they're really our unsung heroes. You know, we turn up at shul and they're there, the Shabbos, you know, but a lot goes on behind the scenes, a lot of planning, and it's not just thanks to those people. It's to all of you who are out there volunteering, and as you will hear, they're always looking for more volunteers. I've put myself forward as well. I get to stand outside for an hour. You know, what's not to like?
In the rain.
Yeah.
So wonderful. Okay, so let's meet.
Let's meet the team. Okay, so joining us here on NLTV tonight, we have our outgoing chair and vice chair of the security committee, Norman Roback and Danny Green, and our incoming chair and vice chair, Adam Arnold and Talia Bloom. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Danny and Norman, wow. How many years has it been that you've been in this role?
Right, we started together 10 years ago. Yeah, having spent, I've spent probably the best part of 20 years on the committee. Took over from Paul Hannison. Yeah, the rest, they say, is history.
Now, am I correct in saying you're stepping down, but you're not really stepping down, you're stepping back a bit because you'll still be involved in the security rota. You've got the experience and you want to continue using that a little bit, he told me. Am I right?
Yes, very much so. Yes, you know, it's time to hand over the reins and bring in some new blood and some new thought. But I think I've still got a role to play on the committee. I want to support Adam and Talia in the transition, and you know, once you're a security man, you're always a security man. So it's in the blood, and no bigger testament to that than my vice chair Norman, who has been doing it a lot longer than probably all of us put together.
So you chose him or he chose you? How did that work? How did that relationship begin? Norman, how did you get involved with security?
I got involved when I joined Norris Lee Shore,
Wow.
which was many years ago now. But before that, I'd been doing it long before CST existed. So I've been doing it for a long time.
Wow.
You created CST then?
No, CST was formed from groups that were across London. There was one based in Ilford and one based in Sandmore. And then Joel Dronson pulled the whole thing together and CST started to exist.
You trained them?
No,
No.
we had people from Israel that helped train us all.
Amazing.
How did you guys become a team? Danny, did you choose Norman as vice chair?
It was a natural choice to make at the time. Paul approached me when he was, you know, in a situation where he needed to also take a step backwards. He had a young family at the time. He was a fantastic chair of the committee and probably, you know, was responsible for the security template that we have today. At the time, you know, somebody like Norman with his experience, you know, brought another dimension to the team, and you know, that was great. So, you know, we've always had a very close-knit security team. The core of the team, you know, were sort of, let's say, we've grown up together. So, you know, all had a good relationship.
So in all the years that you've been doing security, is there one incident or story that you know, strange or exciting that you want to share with our viewers that happened, if you can?
They're very security conscious here.
Well, I've been involved in security, as I say, both at our shul with CST for many years. I was, you know, lucky to work with a couple of the chief rabbis. I worked on, you know, running some very big events at, you know, West End hotels, the charity events around London, and, you know, had some great times. I'm pleased to say I've never seen any sort of anything too serious or too terrible happen on any job, but you know, we've always had to deal with something somewhere along the line, and you know, that's what we have to, that's what we're trained for, that's what we have to react to. You draw on your training like any other role. So it's been, you know, it's been a very fulfilling role on many levels, both with, you know, the friendships I've formed both on the committee, within the community, the membership, the volunteers that turn out week in, week out and support us. They've been amazing, absolutely amazing, because, you know, like the security committee, there's, you know, there's a group of guys that have supported us, you know, every Shabbat, every Yom Tov, you know, without fuss, without fail, you know, rain or shine, and, you know, we know who we can turn to, and we couldn't do it without them.
That's great. So Norman, do you have, is there any specific like character that one needs to have in order to take on this role?
No, you've got to have a very understanding wife or partner to, so as you give up a hell of a lot of time.
Right.
Yeah, the only comment I'd like to make is that out of all the events I've run over a long time, only 2 people have ever thanked me. That was the most hurtful part. I mean, the community just takes it for granted, but 2 people only have ever thanked me. One was the last ambassador from Israel to this country, who personally thanked me, and the other one, believe it or not, was Princess Diana, who also thanked. But they were the only 2 that have ever said thank you.
Do people not say thank you when they leave shul?
Yeah, but I mean from events. I don't mean.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
Not people just leaving shul.
Yeah.
The shul always says thank you. I mean, hence we're doing this on Norsley TV to thank you for all the years. I guess not only that you've put into the shul, but in the whole of London, for that matter.
Yeah, none of us do it for thanks. We just do it.
Wonderful.
I think you're our guardian angels, you know, because we couldn't do anything, any event in the shul. We couldn't even have shul without you guys at the front gate.
Rain or shine, you know, they're standing out there, right?
Oh, I was watching you on Yom Tov. Oh my gosh, you were flooded.
Yes.
And Talia and Adam, you were standing there, not bothered, you know, rain or shine, you still have that cheery, welcoming, smiley face, and it's wonderful.
Singing in the rain, singing in the rain.
and sometimes you're out there for hours.
And Danny has a unique ability that when he's on, the sun's shining. When everybody else is on, it pours with rain.
Okay, so if you're stepping back, will you leave the sun out for everyone, please?
It shines on the righteous.
You're all righteous. You're all righteous. Yeah.
So Talia and Adam, are you excited, nervous, taking on this new role? I mean, you've been involved in security for quite some time already, right? As one of the volunteers.
Yeah.
We'll start with Talia.
Look, we've got big boots to fill. So yeah, of course we're nervous, but excited as well. You know, we've done our training. I mean, Adam's been on the committee for a lot longer than I have. I think it's only been a couple of years that I've been on the Shaw committee. So he's been on for a lot longer, but I'm hoping with all my experiences and knowledge, I'll be able to, you know, cope with the demands and whatever is expected of me.
Are you the first female chair?
First female to join the committee, is that correct, Danny?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's
we now
amazing.
have gin and tonic at committee meetings as well as scotch. Things are changing.
I did feel when I first joined the committee that I'd infiltrated sort of the boys' club a little bit, and they were all very kind to me. Nobody made me feel uncomfortable.
They made space at the table for you.
Absolutely, you know they can have their banter with me, and we can talk about football, whiskey, or whatever they want to talk about, and they can.
So what made you join?
I've always been interested in sort of security and understanding, you know, making sure that my kids are safe at school or at shul, and being part of a community where my kids are there a lot. I wanted to make sure that I was a part of the committee that was helping to ensure they are safe. So I think I volunteered once, and there was a level 1 course that Danny had organised as CST at shul. I went to that. I enjoyed what I did there. And then followed on from that, I'm now level 4, which is each level that you do is a 10-week course with the CST, which is, you know, intense training for 10 weeks. It's about 3 hours.
Is it Krav Maga?
Like an hour and a half of theory that you learn, an hour and a half of Krav Maga, which is physical training. So you do that over a 10-week period, and you get each level. If you pass, not everybody passed, and not everybody is asked to stay either. They lose people along the way. So, you know, I've, you know, tried my hardest to gain as much experience that I can, enough knowledge to be able to give back to our shul. That's why I've done it, to help our community and to help.
You're a true leader. You wanted it to work well, so you decided to take on a leadership role as well. At what level of the training do you get your gun, if I may ask?
Well, some of us start with them. Well, we don't tell anyone, but
I know.
That's great. And so Adam, how did you get involved? So how long you've been with the CST?
I think it's about 8 years now. And it's really when the anti-Semitism took a big uptick in the UK around that time. And I thought, enough's enough. I want to do something. What can I meaningfully do? And then you realize once you're in, this will be your contribution to the community. You know, you're not going to be running charity committees or doing other things. This is it. That dawns on you, and then you train harder and you keep going, and eventually you take leadership positions. But I'm still doing it, and I'm glad I got in, because anti-Semitism hasn't exactly receded. It's got worse. And I don't think, I think it's timeless. It's never going away. So what's being asked of our generation isn't anything compared to what was asked of our grandparents' generation, or even my father's generation when fascists were in the East End. You know, so what falls to us, I think, is ours to deal with, to step up and take these positions. I'm glad about it.
Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, parts of it, not the rain. Some of the training is pretty painful. But yeah, of course, it's rewarding to know that people can go in and feel safer, and that we're deterring and, you know, hopefully not, but being able to deal with an attack should it come.
And do you feel you get the right support from the community? Because obviously you'll need a lot of volunteers who are trained, perhaps not on your level, but to fill in rotas and different shifts. I mean, Shabbos morning with various services, they start early, finishes late. Do you feel you've got the right support?
Listen, we have amazing rota of stalwarts that support us as the guy said earlier, and we're tremendously grateful, but clearly we need more. And I don't think the shul wants to mandate that, but we would love it if anyone who's listening to this, who feels it's on their list of things to do, could come forward and say, yeah, you know what, I will do it. It'll be an hour a month or every 2 months. It's really quite doable, and we can be highly flexible and make it work around you. But please do come forward and step forward. You can receive training. We can put you in positions you're comfortable with. But yeah, doing that for us would be fantastic and help us keep everybody secure.
That's fantastic. I mean, viewers may remember we interviewed Ella Marchant. I think she's your youngest volunteer a couple of months back. And she said she finds it so rewarding. And there's a couple of other youngsters from Suburb Link who joined. And they find it, like you say, that you're giving to the community. It's something worthwhile and something important. And you feel good. You've done your job. You've done a mitzvah, really. So yes, if anyone listening, please, we need you. Ask not what the community can do for you. Ask what you can do for the community. Not my line, by the way.
So how could they sign up? How could they get more information? Where can they find it?
They can simply email myself, Daniel, Talia, the office, and ask. Simple as that, and we'll come straight back to you.
And do they have to be in physical shape? Like, is there a
have to be highly trained ninjas? No, they don't. But what we really need are people who can commit, who can turn up, and for an hour be alert, follow instructions, and as I say, be that deterrent and spot things that we need them to spot. That's it. They're not required to act actually in any way. That's our job. We'll deal with that, but we want them to be a deterrent and our eyes, assist us in profiling and keeping our perimeter strong.
Right. Sounds simple enough. And with a smiley face.
And a smiley face.
That's an added bonus.
That's a prerequisite, yeah.
You know what? I'm saying it live on national TV. I'm going to join myself. Do you ever have clergy joining?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Right, I'm on. I'd rather be outside chatting than sitting in shul. Did I just say that? But yeah, I'm going to join.
You're welcome.
Okay.
You know where we are.
And I know exactly where you are. You're there to welcome us every week, every event.
You're very welcome.
Be on the rota. We're on the welcoming committee. There's no reason why we can't do security. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Okay. Did you hear that?
That means you'll have to daven at Hashkama, though. You can't get away with any.
I'll work out my own schedule. Don't you worry about it.
We'll work around you. Very good.
You or the youth or whatever. I'm just jobbing with you. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you all very much for everything that you've done and continue to do for us. Really, like, you know, we can't be in the show without you guys being outside the show. And so we really appreciate every effort and your spouses as well and your partners who have to support you, because we know that somebody has to hold the fort on the other end. And they're probably all scared of you as well now, or they're the ones that get some of the training with the practice end.
Yeah, and that's what we want to say to you on behalf of the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Rabbi.
We are doing a special event in Shul Shabbat Bereshit to honour you guys, so be there.
We look forward to it. Thank you.
Good Scotch, I hope.
Yes.
Outside, yes.
To go. Kiddush to go.
Sorry.
Yes, we're looking forward to celebrating on Shabbat Bereshit. For the ones stepping down and the ones coming in, we're going to celebrate. So we hope to, hopefully people will come out and show that support and say thank you in person. And so we hope to see more people there.
Yeah. Can I say something before we close down?
Sure, please.
Just to say thank you for Danny for doing it so well for the last umpteen years, and for the new people that are taking over who've been working with us for the same amount of time. It's a pleasure to be with them. They're always great people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Norman.
Thank you, Norman. Thank you. You know, you've been a stalwart and a support to me for, you know, the entire, you know, duration of my tenure. And I'm grateful for that. And as I say, a great friendship we formed as well. So I'm blessed for that. In Talia and Adam, I know we're handing over to the right people, both highly trained, both very sensible, very bright people who know, you know, take a sensible and calm approach to security. And as I say, I hand over to good people and leave it in very good hands. So, you know, good luck to you both. And I'm here. I hope I support you the way you've supported me.
Thank you, Danny.
Danny,
Just keep looking for the torches and umbrellas, okay?
if I can add one thing as well, while we were planning the reopening of the shul, we've had many meetings, of course, where you were present, and talking about the various challenges, the staggered timing and the added services, and each time, so the wardens would perhaps mention that this is an extra strain on community, and you always responded, "Oh, don't worry, we'll work it out, and you never said no to anything. You always, whatever the shul wanted to do, you were there to support them, because we couldn't do it without you. You always found a way, and it's just been amazing. So I just wanted to add that bit, so thank you.
That's true. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again, and we look forward to celebrating with you with Shabbat Bereshit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye-bye.
What a team.
Yes, amazing. First female to join the committee.
Yes, and
Beautiful.
to lead on the committee as
and
well.
to lead as well, and then she moved up in ranks so fast, level 4 now. I wouldn't mess with her. Krav Maga.
Yeah,
they do.
I wouldn't mess with any of them.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting to hear, when they didn't have any exciting stories, or they didn't want to tell us any of the exciting stories. So
I wanted to know when they get the gun, but they wouldn't say.
No, it was a very secret committee, and but it seems like they're very close knit. And
they work together as a good team. As part of the teamwork is phenomenal as well, which you need in an organisation like that. Any organisation, really. Yeah.
And their family, it's like a nice knit, close family. And
support each other.
Yeah. It's interesting that Norman remembered 2 specific people that thanked him: Princess Diana and the ambassador. Although we know that the shul, he said he wasn't talking about the shul. He said the shul people always thank, right?
Yeah, because I've seen people, Shabbat Shalom, thank you very much. You do that. We're all mentioned, aren't we?
That's right. That's right. So yeah, yasher koach to them, and we really hope that you'll come out and say thank you in person as we honor them this weekend for Parshas Bereshit.
Yes, special honouring them in shul this Shabbat.
Special Kiddush to go.
Kiddush to go. Make sure you do book before 11:59 p.m. on Thursday night to book your place at the shul.
That's right.
I think they deserve our recognition, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always try to find a little musical for you. Chazan Avrami really worked unbelievably hard over the Yom Tov, singing by himself. Although now we found a way to be in the Dayan Lou's box, and that you could join him. They thought of it at the end.
You can have, because there's a new choir rule.
Right.
So you can have 6 members who are in a choir. If they're 3 meters apart, they don't need to wear a mask and they can sing. But they only found that out right at the end of Yom Tov. Avrami goes, "Oh, you could have told us this earlier, surely." But it worked.
It worked. So for Parshas Noach, we're giving him a break this weekend. But for Parshas Noach, maybe you can start having a proper little choir going on. And
if you want to join the choir, men, let us know.
Yeah, we'll have to find another spot for them though.
Yeah.
But in any event, so we have special permission from Yehuda Solomon, who is the leader of the Moshav band, a little something different, that has a special song for Bereshis, a nice little musical. So we're going to end with that. So hopefully you enjoy something a little different. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Looking forward. It's good night from me, and it's good night from...
Rabbanit. Take it easy. All right.
Keep safe. A gesunte Winter, as they say.
בראשית ברא אלוהים את השמיים, את השמיים ואת הארץ. בראשית ברא אלוהים את השמיים, את השמיים ואת הארץ. והארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו וחושך על פני תהום, ורוח אלוהים מרחפת על פני המים. ולחושך קרא לילה. ויבדל אלוהים בין האור ובין החושך, ויקרא אלוהים לאור יום, ולחושך קרא לילה. והארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו, וחושך על פני תהום, ורוח אלוהים מרחפת על פני המים. ויאמר אלוהים יום ויהי יום, וירא אלוהים טוב כי טוב. ויאמר אלוהים יום ויהי יום, וירא אלוהים טוב כי טוב. וירא את האור כי טוב. ויהי יום, וירא אלוהים טהור כי טוב. ויאמר אלוהים יום ויהי יום, וירא אלוהים טהור כי טוב. ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום אחד.